Welcome back to the deep dive. So, it is that time of year again, the holiday season.
hmm
And, for so many of us, that phrase, it conjures up a really specific set of images, right? Often it's centered on one big holiday, like Christmas.
Right. But the reality is that our workplaces, our communities, they're more diverse than ever.
Yeah.
And that means the holiday season is, well, it's less of a single spotlight and more like a huge, vibrant landscape.
The landscape, I like that.
Yeah, you're talking about a really dense calendar. You've got holy days, you've got cultural celebrations, personal traditions,
Mhm.
whether it's Hanukkah, Diwali, Kwanzaa.
Or sometimes Ramadan falls around this time of year.
Exactly. Or even the choice to not celebrate anything at all. And that creates this real tension. How do you manage a shared experience when the traditions themselves are so different?
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. Our source material for this deep dive frames it, I think, beautifully. The big question isn't what you celebrate, but how you honor what others celebrate.
That's the mission.
That's our mission. We are taking a shovel to all this material to pull out practical, actionable guidance, a real shortcut for you on navigating religious expression, cultural practices, and all those time off requests so everyone can feel genuinely respected.
And the material we looked at, it really focuses on shifting the narrative. It's about turning those friction points into what one resource called a season-wide invitation to practice inclusion in its most human form.
I love that.
Yeah, we have insights for team members, for managers, for leaders, and critically, we're pulling some really practical etiquette from a classic in the field, How to Be a Perfect Stranger, 6th edition.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start with the stakes because this isn't just optional work anymore.
Not at all.
When we talk about holiday inclusion, we are not just talking about morale. We were talking about organizational health and, frankly, legal liability.
Precisely. In today's workforce, just assuming the holidays means Christmas, it's a huge organizational risk. This isn't just about being nice. This moves into compliance territory really, really quickly.
So what happens when organizations don't get it right?
Well, there are three predictable problems that pop up and cause, concrete harm.
The first one's got to be scheduling conflicts.
Always.
And this is where that whole nice to have conversation just
It ends, right?
it ends. It hits
Yeah.
a wall.
Yeah.
Imagine you're running a critical retail operation. That high demand day, you need all hands on deck. It very often falls on someone's sincerely held holy day.
And if you fail to accommodate that, and we're talking about a sincerely held belief, not just a preference.
Right. That's when you move from a morale issue to a pretty serious legal liability issue. You're talking EEO complaints.
Okay, so that leads right into the second problem, which is what? The cultural missteps.
Cultural missteps. These are the things that feel so exclusionary. Think about the mandatory after-hours holiday party or the dreaded Secret Santa is mandatory.
Not only do those things exclude people for all sorts of reasons, childcare, religion, but then you get a manager who says something like, we're all Christian here, so let's sing carols. The intent might be positive, but the impact is just profoundly isolating,
And the third one.
is unintentional exclusion. This is about ignoring the specific faith-based needs. We're talking about a need for a prayer space, or break adjustments for fasting during Ramadan, or dietary restrictions like kosher or halal.
These are not preferences.
No, they are non-negotiable religious commitments. And ignoring them basically tells an employee that their core beliefs matter less than the office party.
But if you flip that script, the benefits are just so clear. You prevent morale from tanking, you reduce your risk of those EEO complaints, and you build psychological safety.
Fundamentally, you demonstrate a level of respect that knowledge workers are actively looking for. It's a talent retention issue.
That context is so important. So let's pivot from the why to the how. Let's get into the practical do's for everyone. And I think the single biggest shift we found in the sources is all about communication.
It really is. The key do is so fundamental. Ask, don't assume.
Yeah, and the source material had such a simple but really powerful wording shift. We're so trained to ask the closed question right. Do you celebrate Christmas?
And that immediately puts anyone who doesn't on the defensive. It forces them to explain why they're different.
So what's the better way?
You make the question open-ended, expansive, instead you try. What holidays or traditions, if any, are meaningful for you this season?
Ah, that little phrase, if any.
It does so much work. That one phrase makes room for everyone. The person who celebrates Hanukkah, the person who celebrates Kwanzaa, and crucially, the person who observes nothing at all and just needs some time off. It creates that psychological safety right away.
Okay, so once you've opened that conversation, a manager's job becomes logistical, and the sources were super clear on this. You have to plan ahead using a multi-faith calendar.
You absolutely have to. There are great tools out there. The Anti-Defamation League, the Interfaith Calendar. You use them to check for major holy days before you set that huge deadline. It's preventative medicine for your schedule.
And you have to be transparent.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you know December is a high-demand month, you need to communicate that early and explain why. Then you can plan coverage transparently so the whole process feels fair and equitable for everyone, no matter why they need the time off.
But let's talk about the team events.
Yeah.
The desire to celebrate together is strong, but how do you do it without falling into that tokenism trap? You know, the cultural spotlight that ends up just forcing one person to represent their entire faith on a card table in the break room.
That is a crucial distinction, and the sources address it head-on. Inclusion means focusing on learning, not just on decorations. A respectful event doesn't require mandatory participation.
So what does it do instead?
You can sponsor educational moments, like a brief 5-minute explanation of the significance of Diwali, and it's offered by someone who's interested, not compelled. The focus has to be on voluntary awareness and shared learning.
And I imagine the simplest way to show respect is just the time off itself.
Oh, 100%. The sources are unanimous: flexible scheduling, break adjustments, and floating holidays. A floating holiday is a systemic fix. It says, we get it, not all the important days fall on the same date for everyone.
Which is a perfect lead-in to the common pitfalls, because it's often the things we don't think about that trip us up.
Exactly. It's the difference between a well-intentioned event and a genuinely respectful one.
This is where the nuance really kicks in for me, the don'ts list. I think we've all been in that meeting where someone makes a well-meaning joke about fasting that just falls completely flat.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And the most important non-negotiable is to avoid pressure and presumption. So first, don't assume non-participation is a rejection.
Meaning if someone skips the party.
It's not about the team. People skip events for deeply held religious reasons, family needs, or maybe they're just introverted. You have to allow for that quiet choice to opt out.
And right along with that is, don't require participation. A mandatory celebration is just an oxymoron.
The moment you remove choice, you remove respect. It's that simple.
You know, we also have to be so careful with our language, right? Phrases like the real holiday spirit or our shared holiday traditions.
Yes, those phrases assume a shared baseline that just isn't there anymore. You should focus on shared values instead. Things like gratitude or rest or connection. Those are universal.
And extending that ask, don't assume idea, we should never pressure people to explain their beliefs. If someone takes a day off, it should be okay for them to share why, and it should be just as okay for them not to.
They shouldn't have to give you a theological deep dive to justify a PTO request.
And the final one, which ties it all together.
Don't use humor that trivializes beliefs. Jokes about fasting or food or rituals, they can cross boundaries so quickly. Respect is always the safest bet.
That's such a great summary for the workplace. But the rules kind of change when you step out of the office and into someone's sacred space. So let's pivot to the really personal side of this, using those insights from How to Be a Perfect Stranger.
Yeah, this guide is built on one single powerful premise. It's from the authors Harold Kushner and Stuart Matlins, and it's this: if you respect a person's sacred space, you respect the person.
What does that mean in practice?
It means when you're a guest, deference and observation are your best tools. You're there to learn, not to participate in the same way.
Okay, so let's get specific. What if you're invited to a worship service, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple during a major holiday?
First rule is get there early. You want to watch and observe how other people enter, how they greet each other, where they sit. The golden rule is just to follow the community's lead.
So if they stand, you stand. If they sit, you sit.
Exactly. And if you're unsure, just remain seated respectfully. No one will fault you for that. And always dress modestly unless you've been told otherwise.
What about the parts of the service that involve active participation, like communion or a recitation in a language you don't know?
The sources are so clear on this. It is always okay to quietly decline participation in faith rituals that are not your own.
So if everyone goes up for communion, you just stay in your seat.
You stay seated respectfully. You're an observer. If you have a logistical question like where's the coat check, you ask an usher or your host. The key is to do it privately, briefly, and respectfully. Don't disrupt the moment.
Okay, let's flip that. This happens all the time in the winter months. You're the host, and you're having friends or family over who have a different faith. This is where it can get awkward. especially with food.
It's all about preparation and genuine curiosity. First, learn one or two meaningful traditions from their holiday. It shows you care about their life. And crucially, do not assume dietary allowances. You have to ask direct, clear questions about what they can and cannot eat. Is it ingredients? Is it preparation? Is it timing? A simple, what do I need to know to make sure you have something safe and comfortable to eat, goes a very long way.
And it's not just about the kitchen, is it?
Not at all. You should offer a quiet space for prayer or reflection if they need it. Having a private room available shows incredible respect.
Yeah.
And just acknowledge the differences without making it the center of attention. You're not interviewing them for a documentary. You're just creating a safe space.
What about when kids are involved? How do you manage their curiosity?
You use simple, neutral language. You don't need a theology lesson. All you need are clear instructions like, we're visiting a place where people celebrate it in a different way. We're going to be respectful and follow their lead. It's a basic lesson in citizenship.
That personal etiquette is so important. But let's zoom back out to the highest level, to the institutional strategies. How do leaders make this respect sustainable so it's not just a seasonal thing that fades in January?
It has to be systemic,
Yeah.
preventative. It starts with crystal clear communication from the top. Leaders should provide an annual holiday guidance memo, probably in October or early November.
And what's in that memo?
It outlines everything. Expectations for time off, for coverage, what's acceptable for decorations, and how to request an accommodation. It sets a respectful tone before any problems can even start.
We've mentioned it before, but it feels really important here in the leadership section, floating holidays.
Yes. It's one of the simplest and most effective inclusive practices you can implement. It gives employees the agency to observe what's important to them.
What else can an organization do?
For larger organizations, creating a formal holiday inclusion guide is a great move. It centralizes everything: the multi-faith calendar, dietary notes for events, do's and don'ts, language guides. It's a single source of truth, so managers aren't just improvising.
And the framing of all this is so critical. The source is really stressed focusing on respect, not compliance.
Oh, absolutely. The recommended language is powerful. Saying, let's make room for everyone, builds connection. It lands so much better than, we must comply with policy 4.7b.
One is a relationship, the other is a legal burden.
Exactly. And the final piece, and maybe the most important, is manager training. So many EEO complaints happen because a supervisor just doesn't know the right steps to take when a sincerely held belief requires a change to the schedule or workflow. Training them to understand that distinction is probably the single best preventative measure you can take.
So after all of that, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've gone from scheduling all the way to the etiquette of visiting a house of worship. I think the core takeaway is this. The holiday season doesn't require us to share beliefs. It only asks that we share respect.
That's the critical insight.
When we approach each other with curiosity instead of assumptions, the whole environment just becomes connected, not just compliant.
Right. And this guidance isn't just a seasonal thing. It's about building a foundation of respect that works year-round. It points to bigger resources like the EEOC guidance or Harvard's Religious Literacy Project. It shows that the learning never really stops.
Exactly. So here's something for you to consider as we close out. If we commit to being curious and respectful about all these different traditions that pop up in December, how does that mindset translate into being more proactive and effective in navigating accommodation requests, from prayer breaks to scheduling to clothing that come up throughout the rest of the year?